Hello guys, my name is Manish and I welcome you to this channel Technical Curiosity where we will discuss some really cool and exciting stuff. So without further ado, let's start. So as you can see on my screen, here's the content which you can also find on a public GitLab repository. I will share the location in the description. You can go and check there. But these are the topics we will cover in this series. What we are going to do is we are going to follow a simplistic approach here while going on this journey. What we will do is we will focus on three main aspects such as why, what, and how. And what does it mean is we will start with why we need it. If we start with, we will take a concept, we'll just first try to understand why we need it. Then we will get familiar with some of the terminologies, and then we will see how we implement that part, or we make use of that thing in practical. I hope you would enjoy this with me, and believe me, this is going to be really interesting. So as you can see on my screen, our first topic is modern application architecture. We will first try to understand why we need that. What are we doing wrong, or what was not right? Let's just put it that way. um, what was missing there? What in the way what we were adopting to create the applications and all. So let's quickly just have a look at this diagram. So let's go in the past and try to remember how the applications were made in earlier days. In most of the cases, we used to write the code in some programming language of our choice, package it as per the runtime specification, and deploy this. The way these applications used to written was to put everything, the front end and back end code, all together at one place, packaged in one archive to make it a single deployment unit. That means, so archive is just like a bundle, a package. So put everything front end code, back end code, package it in one archive, and deploy this thing. This was okay for some of the use cases, not just then, but even now. For some of the use cases, this is not a bad idea. We can do it based on many other factors. It can be find out whether this still meets the requirement of whatever application we want to make, but not always. So let's just try to understand what are those use cases when it is not. We wouldn't say that it's a wrong thing, but we would say it would not be a perfect match for those use cases. So let's just think about that. You have a use case where you have too many backend computation or the backend services and many integration points. You have distributed services, and now you start putting everything in one big archive. So what you're going to do is you're gonna end up with one really big archive, and you would be deploying it. So the problem would be if, let's say, one of the backend service, one of the backend processing, or let's say the computation, could be used in other applications, or they could consume it as a service. They wouldn't be able to do it because that has been packaged inside it. Though there are different ways of doing it, we can still do it, but not straightforward. So what we did is we ended up with something which we wrote a backend service, a computation which can only be used by this one application, but not by the other applications. So we brought the principle of reusability and also the single responsibility, no coupling, because everything is at one place. You can't just give access to the other applications. So now let's come to the how part, how it was addressed, what people thought of doing with it. So they came up with an idea. Let's just have a look at this diagram. They said instead of just making one deployment unit, having everything in it, let's start splitting it based on their usage. So the first split was done on the basis of the front end and the back end services. So they separated all the interfaces, the front end app, and deployed it separately. And the back end services also refactored and on a very granular level. And then they came up with multiple deployment units. For communication, how these different applications can communicate with each other was the HTTP. So we have one front-end application and the back-end application, and they can communicate over HTTP protocol. So the communication was addressed using the HTTP protocol. They split it into the multiple deployment units and came up with this architecture. This became the modern application architecture, and all this refactoring, implementing the best practices and some proven patterns gave birth to few new buzzwords. I'm sure which you hear every day in your life, like monolith, domain-driven design, microservices, etc. So when it was one big single application, they said it was a monolith application because everything was in one application, irrespective of their concerns, the responsibilities. It was packaged in one, so that was known as monolith application. When they started breaking down the services to a granular level by following the single responsibility principle, they called it microservices because they were limited to one responsibility and one concern and were doing it well. So their scope was very limited. It was not just like something is doing that and all. No, it's just one thing, and it was responsible for one thing. So that was about it. That was the architecture which was changed from this to that. So in this series, what we are going to discuss is the automation testing, the backend API testing for these backend services. So I hope you would have known few new things if you are new to this all, and I'm sure you would just like it more in the other videos. I hope you liked it. Thank you so much.